We're under a consent order with the DEP to solve the sewage problems in and around Mingo Circle, and it affects 50-plus homes. That consent agreement indicates that if we do not diligently and vigorously proceed with that project, that this township will be faced with fines in excess of $245,000. That's how serious the DP is about solving that problem and requiring that we solve it no matter what the cost. So the initial design that has to be approved by the DEP called for a package plant to be installed on property owned by Mrs. Vanahaski. That was the property that was cited, that was the property that was certified by DEP, and so our job is to continue with the requirement of installing the sewage system. And the first order of business was to negotiate a purchase of the property. It was about a half acre, and it was right next to Mrs. Vanahaski's home. She was adamant that she did not want to sell. In order to comply with the consent order, we were left only with the option of filing an eminent domain action to indicate to the DEP we are proceeding. Now, under the eminent domain code, once you file an eminent domain action, you have to put into a trust fund the estimated just compensation for the taking of that property. That's how you perfect your eminent domain, your declaration of taking, so that you can proceed to take the property over, to do what you need to do with the property. And the only issue then is, what is the fair market value? And that's where, if the parties can't agree, once again, it goes to a board review, and they set the price. We had an appraisal done, and the appraisal came back at something less than $60,000. So on the strength of that appraisal, the board, in compliance with the eminent domain code, issued a check to Sweat Law Office's client trust account. It's not a separate account, it's a client trust account that all attorneys and law firms are required to maintain under our disciplinary rules. So that, along with multiple other funds of other clients not related to Union Township, that money was deposited into our client trust account, and an individual ledger card was set up. We were able then to satisfy the requirements of the eminent domain code by holding that amount. Van Haskey family retained counsel in Pittsburgh to object to the filing, object to the amount. And at that point in time, they were mounting a counteroffensive where they were prepared to argue that even though Mrs. Vanahaski owns a home and I believe 20 or 30 plus acres, that this half acre is so integral to her whole 30 acres that our potential taking is not just of the half acre, but of all 30 acres in the home. If the Vanahaskis would have prevailed, the Board of Review could have come back with a damage amount in hundreds of thousands of dollars. So at that point in time, we reconvened, and also the Vanahaski family voiced their concern, and our hands were tied at that point. But this board instructed the engineers, well, would you look at other sites? Is there another site that potentially might work? And the Vanahaski's attorneys worked with us on trying to identify locations past the Vanahaski property. And they were able to locate a parcel on the, help me. Leco property, which is where one of the drill pads is going to be. The engineers, under the direction of the board, were instructed to come up with an alternative design, present it to the DEP, and see if that would be acceptable. The DEP came back and said yes, it was. So we were able to identify an alternate site. In the meantime, the eminent domain action is still open. The money is still in my client trust account, as required by law. And we proceeded to do a subdivision, identify the parcel that was needed for the package plant, and to re-engineer, I guess, some additional grinder pumps, and there's going to be an additional cost based on where this is going to be located. But the township was able to negotiate a purchase of the Leco property for $30,000. Once that was done, once that deal was closed, and the deed is now in the name of the township so that we can proceed into the financing, the construction of the plant and of the general design, we were then able to discontinue the action against Mrs. Banahaski. As part of the settlement of that eminent domain action, we had to pay some of their attorney's fees, but after the matter was settled, my office wrote a check for that same amount back to Union Township. It was given to Bobby. Bobby deposited into the operating account. So that $58,000 sat until the Banahaski eminent domain action was resolved. Once it was resolved and settled, the check was reissued back, and it's now back in the operating account where it's stored.
Exactly.
That's the story.
Okay, so that, hopefully that clears up any concerns anyone had. And additionally, there was also a statement that Union Township used CSI against the Banahaski property. Does anybody know that to be true? Okay. Just, that was of record, so I wanted to clear that up, and I wanted to bolster one last statement. We are talking about environmental concerns here this evening, and we've had tons of environmental concerns, and sewage has been probably one of our biggest, in addition to some of the other concerns people have. So, okay, that's really all I had for Chairman's report, and we can move on.